In the spring of 1942, the Topeka train station smelled of coal smoke, rain, and goodbye. Private William Henry Carter stood on the platform with his duffel bag at his boots and his cap in his hands. He had never been this far from the farm without his father. Now his father wasn't there. Only Evelyn Parker stood with him. She was wearing a pale blue dress under a worn brown coat, her gloved fingers wrapped around a yellow envelope. The loudspeaker crackled, calling his train for Fort Benning. Men in new uniforms shifted their weight, laughed too loud, or stared at the ground. Somewhere, a baby cried. Somewhere else, someone already sobbed. "Don't look like that," William said, trying to smile. "They'll think I'm marching off to my execution." Evelyn's eyes glistened, but she held his gaze. "You're marching off to Georgia," she answered. "You're not even out of the country yet." "Yet," he said, and the word hung between them like a loose wire. He reached for the envelope. On the front she had written his name in neat, careful script. Port William H. Carter, U.S. Army. The ink had blotted slightly where her hand must have trembled. "What's in it?" he asked. "Your first letter," she said. "I thought I'd save the Army the trouble." He chuckled softly. "You know they're supposed to come from me, Evie. I'm the one going to war." "You're the one leaving," she said softly. "I'm the one waiting. I get to write first." The train whistle blew, long and low. A surge went through the crowd. Men hugged wives, mothers, girlfriends. One woman fainted and was eased onto a bench. A boy of maybe 16 tried to stretch himself taller in his new boots. William swallowed. "Ah, now you've done it," he said. "You made it real." She took a breath, as if bracing herself against the sound. "You'll write me," she said, not as a question. "You promise?" "Of course I'll write you, every chance I get." "That's not good enough," she replied. Her voice steadied as she spoke. "I need something I can hold on to. Not whenever you can. Something exact. So I can count it." He blinked. "Count it?" "The days," she said. "Until you come home." A porter walked past with a cart, shouting something about last call. William felt panic rise in his chest, the childish kind he used to feel when his father drove the truck too close to the edge of the wheat field. "How am I supposed to know how long a war lasts?" he asked. She glanced down at the little paper slip tucked in her Bible, the fortune cookie message from the restaurant. They had gone there the night before. They had never eaten Chinese food before. The place had felt foreign and exciting, like a doorway to the rest of the world. "You will make an important journey in 1,042 days, she quoted. That's what it said. He snorted. "You really believe those things?" "No," she said. "But I believe you." He looked at her for a long moment, at the curl that always slipped from her pinned hair, at the way she stood straight even when she was terrified, at the way she talked to him as if he were already the man in uniform she hoped he'd be. "Fine," he said at last. "You want a number? Take that one." He stepped closer, so only she could hear him. "Evie, I promise you this. In 1,042 days, I'll be back here, on this platform, and you'll be wearing whatever dress you want to get married in. And if the war hasn't ended by then, I'll end it myself." She let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. "That's a foolish promise, Will." "Then I'm a foolish man," he said, "but you'll remember it." The whistle blew again, sharper this time. Men began climbing aboard. A sergeant barked orders. Boots thudded on wood. Evelyn reached up and straightened his collar, as if he were just going to Sunday service. "Write it down," she said, "in your next letter, so you can't say you forgot." He grinned. "Bossy." "Scared," she corrected, and for the first time the word cracked her voice. He couldn't bear it. He pulled her close, feeling the thinness of her coat, the warmth of her body, the tick of her heart under his own. For a moment the station faded, and it was just the creak of the porch swing back home, the smell of August hay, the taste of her lips the night he'd first kissed her. "I'll come back," he murmured into her hair. "You mark those days, Evie, one by one. And when you hit 1,042, you look at that track. That's where I'll be." She nodded against his chest, then forced herself to let go. She pressed the yellow envelope into his hand. "Read this on the train," she said. "Not before. I don't want to see your face if you laugh at my spelling." "I don't laugh at you," he said, tucking it carefully into his breast pocket. "Only when you dance." "I only danced once," she argued. "And the memory will keep me alive in North Africa," he shot back. He grabbed his duffel, turned to go, then spun back around, suddenly frantic. "Evie, shore up the barn door," he blurted. "What?" "The hinge is bad on the north side. I forgot to fix it. If it blows open in a storm—" "I'll tell your father," she said gently. "He'll fix it." He nodded, embarrassed. The war was swallowing him whole and he was worried about a barn hinge. "Carter!" a voice shouted from the train. "Move it!" He swallowed again. "All right," he said. "That's me." "I know," she said softly. He climbed the steps, everyone heavier than the last. At the top, he turned. She was still there, small but unshaken, one hand raised, the other clutching her Bible to her chest. He lifted his cap in a half salute, half wave. The train lurched. The platform began to slide away. Through the grimy glass, he saw her mouth move. He couldn't hear the words, but he knew them. 1,042 days, she was saying. "I'll be here." He opened her envelope only after the town had vanished, and the fields had turned to a blur of browns and greens. The other men were singing, arguing, smoking. Someone passed a deck of cards. Somebody else snored already, hat over his face. The letter smelled faintly of lavender soap and ink. "Dear Will, by the time you read this, you'll be somewhere I can't follow, so I've decided to follow you in days instead. I bought a little calendar, and I circled 1,042 squares. Each morning I'll wake up and cross one out, and when I'm done, I expect you on that platform, late or not at all. If that's foolish, then we're both fools now. Yours. I suppose I can say that now. Evelyn." He smiled, but there was a tightness in his chest he hadn't felt before. He folded the letter back along her creases and slid it in with his own empty stationery. 1,042 days, he whispered to himself, testing the weight of the number. It felt light then. Lighter than his duffel, lighter than his rifle, lighter than the future pressing its face against the train window. Later, when the gunfire and the marching and the nights without sleep came, he would think of that moment and the way he'd laughed. Calling it a foolish promise was the only thing he'd ever been right about. The desert did not look like the maps. William had expected endless dunes and a bright horizon. What he found in North Africa was a country of dust and flies, heat that pressed through his uniform, and nights that smelled like metal and fear. He wrote his first letter from the ship crossing the Atlantic. The sea was rough, the bunks stank of diesel, and the men were already gambling on which of them would vomit first. He used a scrap of stationery he had bought at a port stop in Norfolk, his handwriting swaying with the ship. "Dear Evie, you wouldn't believe how much water there is in the world. I never knew the sky could be this wide. Every time I look at it, I think, somewhere under this same one, you're crossing off another square. If you ever run out of calendars, draw your own. That way, I'll never run out of days to come home to." The mail moved slowly, sometimes taking months. His letters to her went out in canvas bags marked U.S. Army Postal Service, APO 251. Hers came back with faint perfume and smudged fingerprints. He slept with them under his pillow. By late 1943, his unit was somewhere near Kasserine Pass. They were supposed to be support, but every soldier learned that support meant near enough to die. Dust filled his mouth, his rifle, his letters. He could taste it even in sleep. One evening, after a skirmish that left the air thick with cordite, he sat on an overturned crate and wrote by the flicker of a lantern. The paper trembled in his dirty hands. "Evie, the days here all look the same, brown and loud. The noise gets inside you. Sometimes I forget what quiet sounds like. I can't say where we are, but there are palm trees. The wind makes them whisper. Maybe that's why I keep hearing your name." When the sergeant shouted, "Mail call!" grown men turned into boys. The letters were read secretly, guarded like treasure. One man named Cooper got 3 letters in 1 week. Another hadn't heard from home in months. "Carter!" the sergeant barked, tossing him a thin envelope. William recognized her handwriting instantly. thin, tidy loops that always looked like she was afraid of running out of paper. He tore it open, ignoring the laughter and the jeers. "Will, you'll scold me, but I bought another calendar. The first one got ruined when the roof leaked. I marked the new one right where I left off. Day 376 today. Mama says I should stop counting and start living, but what does she know? She's never waited for you." He smiled and folded the letter carefully, pressing it flat in his pocket. That night, when he closed his eyes, he could see her hand crossing off the days. They were moved again, to Sicily, then to Italy, following rumors of victory that never quite caught up to them. The postcards he sent from Palermo showed sunshine and cafes. The truth was mud and the smell of burned tires. The men invented superstitions to keep themselves sane. Some kept rabbit's feet, others refused to wash their lucky socks. William kept Evelyn's letters bound in a strip of canvas tied around his wrist. If a bullet hit there, he told himself, it would stop. One morning, the corporal caught him reading instead of cleaning his rifle. "What's so special about that paper, Carter?" he asked. "She writes better than the rest of us live," William said. The corporal laughed. "You planning to marry her?" "I promised." "How long's she waiting?" 142 days. The corporal whistled. "Hell of a number. You countin' too?" "Every night," William said. In December 1943, the unit camped outside Naples. Rain turned the camp into a swamp. He shared a tent with 3 others. At night, they took turns telling stories to drown out the thunder. When his turn came, he told them about Evelyn, about her stubbornness, her laugh, the barn door she made his father fix. One of the men, a kid from Chicago, said, "She real? Or you made her up to keep us quiet?" William pulled a folded photograph from his pocket. The one Evelyn had sent in her second letter. Her hair was pinned back, her smile small, but certain. "Real enough," he said. The kid nodded. "Then you better come home. Women like that don't wait forever." William didn't answer. He had already decided she would. By early 1944, the letters were more cautious. The censor's black ink cut through her sentences like scars. "Will, I heard the fighting has reached Italy. Are you safe? Mama says not to ask questions about the war. I told her I don't want news. I want you." Day 612. "Don't you dare let that number win," he replied when he could, sometimes weeks later, not knowing if she'd ever receive them. "Evie, if you don't get this, maybe someone else will read it and tell you. I'm alive. I still see your face when I shut my eyes. The stars here look closer somehow, like they're waiting for something too." The months blurred. Heat gave way to cold. New faces replaced old ones in the bunks. The war machine moved forward, grinding down names into numbers. Then came Salerno. The beach smelled of salt and blood. The noise of artillery was constant, a dull heartbeat under the sky. When it was over, only half the company answered roll call. That night, William wrote the shortest letter of the war. "Evie, still here, thinking of you. Nothing else makes sense anymore." He folded it, sealed it with the last bit of wax he could find, and handed it to the male corporal before collapsing into sleep. In the morning, the corporal told him the mail truck had been hit by shrapnel. Most of the letters were burned. William stared at the ashes floating through the camp like gray snow. "That's all right," he said quietly. "She already knows." When spring came again, the tulips bloomed in Italy. The war dragged north. William stopped marking his own days. He let her do the counting. He still ended every letter the same way. 1,042 days, Evie. I'll see you at the station. At the time, it sounded like faith. Later, he would wonder if it had been a curse. By the time 1945 began, the war had become a calendar without seasons. Men counted time in shell bursts, in rations, in who was left that morning. The world beyond Europe felt like a story someone had told a long time ago. William no longer remembered what the smell of rain on Kansas wheat felt like. He still remembered her handwriting. The last letter he ever sent left his hands in February. He wrote it in a freezing church near the Rhine. His gloves cut at the fingers. The benches were broken. Snow fell through the roof. He used a candle stub to melt wax for the envelope. "Evie, if this one reaches you, it means I'm on the river. Don't worry, I'll be careful. The men joke that the Germans are running out of bullets. I think they're running out of jokes. It's cold here, but the stars are out tonight, and one of them looks like that mole near your eyebrow. Don't laugh. I never noticed it until the day I left. Funny what sticks in a man's head. Only a few more boxes to cross off. Keep counting. I love you. Foolish and true. He signed it W, the way he always did when the ink froze. Then he blew out the candle and went back to work. The attack started 2 nights later. The river looked calm from a distance. Up close, it was a mouthful of teeth. They were supposed to cross under cover of fog, but the wind shifted. The Germans were waiting. Searchlights sliced the dark. The first raft capsized within seconds. Men vanished under the water, their helmets shining for a heartbeat before they were gone. William jumped in to pull one out. Corporal Joseph Miller, a farm boy from Ohio who couldn't swim. The current hit them like a wall. By dawn, half the platoon was missing. The ones who made it across crawled out shaking, coughing up mud, dragging whatever was left of their gear. When the roll call came, someone said, "Carter?" And the answer was silence. No body, no certainty, just the river. Back in Kansas, Evelyn kept her promise. Every morning she marked another square. She worked at the local library now, shelving books by day and reading them aloud to her mother by night. The radio stayed on constantly, as if it could carry his voice back across the ocean. When the war ended in May 1945, the town held a parade. Flags everywhere, brass bands, soldiers kissing strangers in the street. Evelyn went because her mother made her. She smiled when she was supposed to. She clapped when the veterans marched past. But when they sang "I'll Be Seeing You," she turned away and whispered, "Not yet." For months the mail kept trickling in, official forms, condolences, and finally the envelope with the words "Missing in Action" typed in bold. It was thin. She opened it carefully, expecting something more. A photograph, a dog tag, anything. But inside was just a single line, as if written by a machine. Private William H. Carter has been reported missing near the Rhine. She sat at the kitchen table, the radio humming in the background. Her mother touched her shoulder, but Evelyn didn't look up. She whispered, "Missing isn't gone." That night, she wrote him again. "Will, they say missing. That's not the same as dead. You told me once you could find me by the stars. Well, I'm leaving the porch light on. Don't get lost." She mailed it the next morning. The postmaster hesitated, his eyes full of pity. "Ma'am," he said, "they don't forward letters past the Rhine." Evelyn smiled. "Then maybe the river will carry it, will." Days turned to weeks. In September, the 1042nd day arrived. She woke before dawn and put on the blue dress she had worn at the station. The fabric was older now, faded around the cuffs. She walked to the platform, alone, and waited through the morning trains. The station master asked if she was expecting someone. She said, "Yes, he's late." By noon the sky opened with rain. The crowd thinned. She stayed. At sunset, she opened her notebook and crossed out the last square, then drew a small blue circle around it. The promise was over, but she couldn't bring herself to throw the pencil away. Winter came early that year. The town's Christmas lights flickered weakly under the snow. Her mother caught pneumonia in January and passed quietly. Evelyn packed her things and moved to a small rented room near the library. The landlady was kind, the walls thin. At night she could hear the trains, the same sound that had carried him away. She still wrote letters. She addressed them the same way. Put William H. Carter, somewhere in Europe. She never sealed them, just folded them neatly and tucked them into the biscuit tin beside her bed. The radio announced the rebuilding of Germany, the return of soldiers, the end of rationing. Life went on like a song that refused to end. But for her, every day sounded like the last note hanging in the air. In 1946, a letter arrived in a plain government envelope. The handwriting was not his. It came from a man named Corporal Joseph Miller. He had survived the Rhine crossing. He apologized for taking so long to write. He said he had tried to forget, but when he heard the name Carter again at a reunion, he couldn't. "Miss Parker, I owe you the truth. William saved my life that night. He pushed me onto the raft when it overturned. I didn't see him again. The current was strong. We searched for days. They never found him. I kept something that belonged to him, a pouch with his tags and a locket. If you'd like them, I'll send them. Evelyn read the letter twice, her hands trembling. She placed it on the table beside his old envelopes and whispered, "You kept your promise, Will. You came home the only way you could." That night she lit a candle in the window and left it burning until morning. The wax dripped down like tears. The flame leaned against the glass, flickering each time a train passed. She began to dream of the river, not as a place of death, but as something that carried voices, slow and patient, moving always toward home. When the morning light broke through, she wrote one final letter and placed it on the windowsill. "Dear Will, I've counted them all now. 1,042 days. You were right, it was foolish. But I'd do it again." She didn't sign it. She didn't have to. The wind from the open window lifted the page gently and carried it to the floor. Evelyn smiled. "Guess you got the last word after all," she whispered. And for the first time since the station, she let herself cry. The spring of 1946 came slow to Kansas, gray and reluctant. The war was over on paper, but for Evelyn, it lived in the empty chair at the table, in the faint rust of his name on the mailbox. Every letter she wrote now began with, "You won't believe this, Will," and ended with nothing. She never mailed them. They were confessions to a ghost. Then, one late afternoon in May, someone knocked. 3 firm raps, polite, official. She wiped her hands on her apron and opened the door. A man stood there in uniform. For one sharp second, her heart leapt, foolish and feral. It wasn't him. He was older than Will would have been, thin and sunburnt, the kind of man who carried his memories in the stoop of his shoulders. His cap was under his arm. He smiled the way people do when they have bad news and don't know how to say it. "Miss Parker?" "Yes. I'm Corporal Joseph Miller. I served with William Carter. May I—" She stepped aside. He entered carefully, as though the air might break. He looked around the small living room, at the bookshelf, at the tin box on the mantel. When his eyes landed on the calendar with the red squares and the one blue circle, his mouth tightened. "I came as soon as I could. He held out a small canvas pouch. The fabric was stained and soft at the edges. Evelyn took it with both hands. Inside were William's dog tags, his lighter engraved with the initials WHC, a photograph of her folded around the edges, and a letter sealed in wax that had melted and reset into a crooked heart. "He kept this pouch tied to his belt," Miller said quietly. "It was still there when we found the raft downstream." She wanted to ask what the river looked like, what he'd said last, whether he had been afraid. Instead, she asked, "Was he kind?" Miller nodded. "He was the kindest man I ever knew." She turned the photograph over. The back was smeared with water, but she could still make out the words he had written the day he left. "For the days I can't see your face." Her hands trembled. She looked up. Would you read it? The letter?" Miller hesitated. "Maybe you should." But she shook her head. Her throat was tight. "Please." He broke the seal with a thumbnail and unfolded the damp paper. The ink had bled, the words soft and uneven. He read slowly. "Evie, if this reaches you, I guess the river was kinder than the world. Tell Mama I kept my promise as long as I could. Tell her the days didn't beat me. They just ran out. I kept your letter in my pocket until the ink faded. I think the stars are closer here. Maybe that's where I'll wait. Love, Will." The words fell into the quiet room like dust. She closed her eyes. In the silence that followed, she could hear the faint whistle of a train somewhere far away, the same note that had carried him off. "I wanted to thank you," Miller said. "If not for him, I wouldn't be standing here." She managed a small smile. "Then thank him when you pray." He nodded, his eyes wet. Before he left, he placed a small box on the table. From the Red Cross Depot. The clerk said it was his. Inside was a medal, a bronze star, and a paper certificate that read, "For heroism in crossing the Rhine under fire." Below the typed line was a single word written in pencil: "Returned." When the door closed behind the corporal, Evelyn sat on the floor. The dog tags were heavy in her palm. The edges pressed into her skin until it hurt. She pressed them to her lips. Weeks passed. Neighbors came by with pies and condolences. The church ladies asked if she would donate the medal to the war memorial. She said maybe later. She kept it in the tin, under the letters. At night, she would set a single candle on the windowsill. The flame flickered against the glass, reflected back like a second light. It became a ritual. One for him, one for her, one for all the things never said. Once, while shelving books at the library, she found a copy of Leaves of Grass. A note on the first page caught her eye. For the one who waits. She took it home and read by candlelight. The words about love and death blurred into her own story. She wondered if some soldier somewhere was reading the same lines. The town moved on. New stores opened, new families arrived. Evelyn kept her routine: work, home, candle. She joined the church choir again, though her voice trembled on the high notes. One evening in 1947, a small brown envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a photograph of a row of white crosses beside a river. A line at the bottom read simply, Rhine, 1946. She pinned it to the wall above her desk. When she looked at it, she didn't see graves. She saw the reflection of stars on water. Years later, she would tell a young neighbor boy about the man she'd promised to marry. The boy asked if he had been a hero. She thought for a long time before answering. He kept a promise that didn't make sense, she said. That takes more courage than most battles. The boy frowned. But he died. Evelyn smiled gently. No. He just stopped counting. On the anniversary of his departure, she went back to the station. The platform was busier now. New uniforms, new wars whispered about. She stood where they had said goodbye, holding the pouch with the tags inside. The wind was warm, carrying the scent of coal and rain. A train pulled in. Passengers disembarked, laughing. For a second she thought she saw him, just a figure in a brown coat. Cap tilted, but when she blinked, he was gone. She whispered into the wind, 1,042 days, Will. You kept them all. Then she turned toward home, the candlelight waiting on the windowsill. By the time Evelyn Parker turned 40, the war had become a story told by others. Children played with toy soldiers in the street, never guessing that each painted face had once been a man with a heartbeat, a family, a promise. The newspapers printed anniversaries and speeches. Politicians spoke of victory, not the silence that followed. Evelyn stayed in the same small house her parents left her, 3 blocks from the old station. The walls held the scent of books. Every drawer hid a letter. On her nightstand, the biscuit tin remained, dented and heavy, its contents unchanged, the medal, the dog tags, the river photograph, and the letters tied with fading ribbon. Each December, she lit a single candle on the windowsill. The first few years, it was for him. Later, it was also for herself. A small, stubborn light that said, I remember. I'm still here. Sometimes she spoke to the candle. Do you think he'd recognize me now? She would ask, half laughing. Or, if he could see this little town, he'd complain about the post office still losing letters. The neighbors called her the widow who never married. They said it kindly, with a touch of curiosity. No one ever dared call her foolish to her face. There was something in her posture, quiet, dignified, that silenced jokes. She became the town's librarian. The children loved her stories, though she never read war tales. She preferred fairy tales, ones where the hero returns home. Sometimes she caught herself glancing at the door between chapters. One day, a little girl asked why she wore the same silver locket every day. Evelyn smiled. Because inside it, there's a promise. The girl wanted to see, but Evelyn shook her head. Some promises only make sense when they stay secret. In 1963, the railway replaced the old wooden benches with metal ones. The original platform, the one where she had said goodbye, was demolished. She went to watch. When the bulldozer tore up the planks, something clattered to the ground. A small rusted nail and a piece of wood still faintly marked with chalk. The workers tossed it aside. Evelyn picked it up. The chalk had faded, but she could still make out the words, 1,042 days. She brought it home, wiped it clean, and placed it on her shelf. Some things, she thought, survive only because no one notices them long enough to throw them away. The years moved quietly. Her hair turned silver. The town forgot the war except for the parade every Memorial Day. Evelyn went, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers. She laid them at the foot of the memorial stone where his name was carved among hundreds. A young journalist approached her once, notebook in hand. "Ma'am, were you related to Private William H. Carter?" She nodded, in all the ways that mattered. "Can I ask how you kept waiting?" Evelyn smiled. "I didn't keep waiting. I just never stopped remembering." The story made a small column in the local paper. "A promise remembered. Local librarian honors lost soldier each year." It drew a few letters from strangers, widows, soldiers' children, historians. She replied to some, always the same way. "Love isn't measured in time. It's measured in what survives it." In 1987, the town decided to renovate the library basement. When the workers began clearing the old archives, they found the biscuit tin tucked behind a beam, wrapped in a wool scarf. The label on top read simply, "Private." Inside, everything was still there. The medals, the letters, the calendar folded into neat squares, the tiny blue circle marking the final day. The librarian who found it, a young woman named Sarah Collins, recognized Evelyn's name immediately. She had grown up listening to her stories. By then, Evelyn had been gone 2 years. She was buried beside her parents on the hill overlooking the river. Sarah brought the box to the Veterans Museum. The curator opened it carefully, reading the letters in silence. Then he placed them in a glass case beneath soft yellow light. The plaque beneath it read, "A Foolish Promise." The letters of William and Evelyn Carter, 1942-1945. She counted 1,042 days. He kept everyone. Visitors lingered at that case more than any other. They didn't look for battles or victories. They looked for handwriting, for the smudges of ink where emotion had pressed too hard. Some wiped their eyes before moving on. Decades later, a history student digitizing the museum's archives came across Evelyn's letters. The ink had faded, but one line remained perfectly legible. It was from the first page of her last letter. "If you ever find this, know that I believed you right up to the last square." He included it in his thesis on wartime correspondence. The professor underlined the sentence and wrote in the margin, "Faith as resistance." Some nights, when the museum lights were off, and only the moon filtered through the glass, the night guard swore he saw the reflection of a young woman in a blue dress standing by the exhibit. She never moved, only looked at the calendar and smiled. When he blinked, she was gone. But the candle on the shelf sometimes burned lower than it should have, though no one had lit it. In the end, Evelyn's story outlived her, outlived the war, outlived the years. A foolish promise, people said. Maybe. But it was the kind of foolishness that built bridges between worlds. Somewhere, across the river in the stars, a soldier was still counting the days, and a woman was still waiting by a window that never went dark.